Welcome, hi, to our one of our virtual learning experiences, our holiday virtual learning experiences for 2021. We're so excited to bring these to you. We've got some great ones with you. We've got the Palm Beach County Library, and then we have the Manatee Lagoon, sponsored by FP&L. And we're so lucky to be at the Norton, where they've got some really exciting things going. And I'm going to turn it over to Meredith Gregory and Veronica Hatch over at Norton. We've had some great partnerships with you, and we're so excited to have you. And I'm going to turn it over to you guys so you can share about this wonderful exhibit that's going on right now at the Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Long. My name is Meredith. I'm a teacher here at the Norton Museum of Art, and we are so thankful to the Education Technology Department for making this virtual learning experience possible.
Estamos aquí compartiendo, Meredith en las galerías y yo aquí arriba en la oficina, para traerles este programa en español desde el Norton Museum en colaboración con el Departamento de Tecnología del Condado de Palm Beach. Muy felices de estar aquí con ustedes.
And Veronica mentioned that this is a dual language experience today. I'm going to be leading the English portion, and Veronica is going to be leading the Spanish portion. I am live in the Norton Museum of Art galleries. We are in downtown West Palm Beach, Florida, and Veronica is in the offices. We have all different types of art here at the museum. We have sculptures, paintings, art from all over the world, and today we're going to be looking at art from Mexico.
Sí, como les decíamos, estamos en vivo desde galerías. El Norton Museum es un museo en Palm Beach y estamos muy emocionados de presentarles. Meredith está en vivo, así que van a ver visitantes por atrás y por adelante de la cámara, pero pienso que agrega también a lo divertido de esta sesión.
As you'll see, the museum is open, so you'll see people walking through the galleries, and I am stationed in an exhibition called Frida Kahlo, who's behind me over here, Diego Rivera, and Mexican Modernism from the Jacques and Natasha Gelman collection. And we're going to be thinking about how artists use symbols to show their identity in their self-portrait, specifically looking at a work of art by Frida Kahlo. And here's a self-portrait of her here.
Yes, and Meredith, just to add in English one thing, this exhibition is on view, and we'll add a little more information at the end, all the way through February 6th of next year. So after this session, and hopefully during the holidays, you're able to come and also see it. So it runs all the way to February 6th. Estamos viendo hoy día, visitando una exhibición que se llama Frida Kahlo, Diego Rivera y el modernismo mexicano, de la colección de Jacques y Natasha Gelman, que estará en el Museo del Norton hasta febrero 6.
So we've made my screen a little bigger because what I'm going to do is soon I'm going to step out of the frame and we're really going to get to examine a work of art by Frida Kahlo. We're going to take 30 minutes to slow down, look at a work of art. We're going to see what the work of art, all the things that we notice. We're going to explore what the work of art might be about. And teachers, at any time, if you want to pause this video, you can stop it so that you can have a little more discussion in your class. You can have students talk to each other, or you could even have students write responses with a pencil and paper. You're on mute, Veronica.
Oh. En los próximos 30 minutos lo que va a pasar es, vamos a tener tiempo para observar. Lo que vamos a pedirles es realmente tomar esto muy despacio. Vamos a bajar la velocidad, vamos a tomar tiempo para mirar, participar y que ustedes expresen sus ideas y sus preguntas acerca de lo que tienen. Vamos a pedirles a sus profesoras que durante la sesión pausen la sesión para poder que ustedes puedan dar sus opiniones y les pedimos que tengan un pedazo de papel y lápiz para poder escribir o anotar sus observaciones.
So let's go see this work of art. And what we're going to do is we're going to look again at symbols, thinking about how people use symbols to show their identity through their work of art. So if you want to pause this video and talk about what symbols and identity mean to you, feel free to do so at any time. Let's get going.
por las galerías, les queremos decir, vamos a explorar lo que realmente estos artistas usan, símbolos para expresar su identidad por medio de autorretratos, que es una forma muy común que esta artista usa. Estamos entrando a las galerías, we're just walking through. Meredith, that looks so wonderful on the TV, so much to see.
Awesome. Well, Veronica, what I love is that this exhibition has more than just paintings. We have clothing, as you can see, and we also have tons of photographs that really explore what Mexico was like at the time that these artists were making their work of art.
Yes, and Meredith is making her way through. Vamos a parar, como pudieron ver, esta exhibición no solamente tiene pinturas, sino fotografías, maniquís con ropa de lo original de esa época. Así que vamos a empezar la sesión.
So, are you ready, Veronica? Are you ready to start our looking?
I'm ready. I hope everyone's ready. Listos.
Okay, what we love about looking at artwork and what I love is that it gives you time to just slow down and look. So we're going to take that time to pause and look all around this work of art. Look at the top, look at the bottom, look at the side to side.
El primer paso que hacemos ahora es solamente ver. Sientan cómo sus ojos se mueven alrededor de esta pintura. Miren hacia arriba, hacia abajo, hacia los lados. ¿Qué más están observando aquí?
And I'm going to zoom in so we can see some of the details more closely. You'll see people walking throughout the galleries. We hope you come visit us soon.
Tenemos un visitante que estaba al frente, así que gracias por su paciencia. Y Meredith está haciendo ahorita, estamos acercándonos a la obra para ver si pueden observar más.
Okay, so the first question we want to ask you is pretty simple. What do you notice about this work of art? What do you notice? Mr. Long's already noticing some great things behind the scenes in our chat. What do you notice about this work of art?
La primera pregunta es, ¿qué es lo primero que ven? Yo ya tengo lo mío, yo sé. Meredith, I kind of always zoom in into something. I already have mine.
Yeah, go ahead, Veronica. What are you noticing?
Meredith, I know you have a way of zooming in. It'll be very interesting if we go and dig right into that flower that calls my attention for many reasons. Just the colors. Le hemos pedido a Meredith que se acerque a la parte de la flor que está al lado izquierdo por los colores.
Well, Veronica, I love that you brought up the colors because I definitely was drawn to this flower as well because of those vibrant colors. We have some what we call cool colors, some really some blues next to some warm, really bright orangey colors. And artists use what we call the elements of art: line, shape, color, texture. They use these to communicate a story. She's drawing our eye to this flower to show us maybe something about herself and her identity. Veronica, anything else about the background that you noticed?
Meredith nos estaba diciendo cómo los diferentes artistas usan los elementos del arte para observar y nos está llevando a ver estos colores, ¿verdad? Los colores cálidos y fríos, como ven los anaranjados, los rojos, los azules. Y también, sí, estoy viendo diferentes cosas. Meredith preguntó, ¿qué más vemos en la parte de atrás, en el fondo de la pintura? I noticed, Meredith, one of the things that always, it's all those leaves and all that foliage on the back of the cedar, right, that we have in the middle, which is Frida Kahlo.
Yeah, so you mentioned back, Veronica. What we call in a work of art behind the back of the photograph is called a background. And we'll be focusing on what we call a background, the middle ground, which is the middle of the work of art, and also the foreground, the front of the work of art. So I love that we're focusing on this background. And Veronica, I'll let you speak in Spanish, and then I have a couple more questions about what we're seeing in this background.
Yes, Meredith is talking about one of the ways, una de las formas de ver esta pintura es realmente como en capas, ¿verdad? La parte de atrás, que es el fondo, de ahí tenemos el medio y el plano, y el primer plano que está al frente. Ahorita estamos enfocándonos en la parte de atrás, donde vemos esta flor con color, todas estas hojas.
So we have some questions for you to think about with this background, because the setting or where this painting takes place is so important to Frida Kahlo and her identity. Frida Kahlo is the person that made this work of art. Where do you think this place is? Do any of these flowers and leaves that we're seeing is kind of reminds me of something? Do any of these flowers or leaves remind you of a place you've seen or visited before?
Meredith nos lleva a pensar en la parte de atrás, ¿verdad? Todas estas hojas que tienen este verde. ¿Qué lugar, dónde piensan que está sentada o dónde está aquí Frida? ¿En qué espacio está? ¿Qué lugar es este? And Meredith, I always think, I'm talking going back to that flower. It reminds me so much of things around me, things I've seen, but also it's a beautiful bird of paradise, which it's like all these feathery, right? And like that big beak. So I love that they call them birds of paradise, because they do look like feathery
Yeah.
birds with a beak.
A lot of time when people first see this, they think it is a bird that they're looking at. And these are flowers, like you mentioned, you've seen them around you, Veronica. They remind us of a lot of flowers and also plants that I see in Florida. In fact, in our museum garden, we have these flora and leaves in our museum garden.
Esto nos recuerda, esta es una flor, ¿verdad? Que se llama el pájaro del paraíso, y nos recuerda mucho a cosas que uno ve alrededor, pero específicamente, si vienen al museo, tenemos un jardín de esculturas donde tenemos este tipo de plantas, y incluyendo la flor del pájaro del paraíso.
So, a little bit about Frida Kahlo and what this might symbolize as we're talking about symbols. Frida Kahlo lived outside of Mexico City. She lived in a place, La Casa Azul. She grew up there, but also lived part of her married life to Diego Rivera, another famous artist in La Casa Azul. And she was constantly surrounded by this nature, plants that you might have seen in Mexico at the time and still might see in Mexico, but ones that we also have in Florida. And she felt a strong connection to nature. So we're going back again to her identity and what was important to her.
Una de las formas que estábamos hablando que uno descubre también es Frida Kahlo usa este autorretrato para invitarnos a descubrir su identidad, y formas que los artistas usan esta identidad es usando símbolos, ¿verdad? En este caso, estas plantas y todo eso nos recuerda a dónde Frida Kahlo creció en México, ¿verdad? Desde pequeña hasta después su vida en una casa, la Casa Azul, y lo que pensamos es que Frida Kahlo estaba rodeada de estas hojas y de estas flores, y ella está usando esto para enseñarnos su conexión profunda con su casa y lo que es importante para ella.
And the plants not only represent her identity, but also her identity as a Mexican a citizen, because she was really thinking about the deep connections to the Mexican land and Mexican origins.
Así es, Frida Kahlo está no solamente pensando en las cosas que son importantes como ella para artista, pero también como ciudadana de este país, México, y lo importante que eso es para ella.
Okay, so now we've taken a moment to look at the background. I really want to focus on the middle ground, the main event. Let's focus on the subjects, the characters of this work of art. We see many characters in this work of art, and I'm really excited to focus on Frida Kahlo. We're looking at a self-portrait, which means a portrait of an artist the artist Frida Kahlo that she painted herself in 1943.
Pintada en esta época, ¿verdad? Porque Frida Kahlo pinta dependiendo también de las cosas que están pasando alrededor. Y esta pintura fue pintada en 1943. Y ya les vamos a decir por qué es importante que mencionemos esto.
So, Frida Kahlo said, I paint myself, this is a direct quote from her, I paint myself because I'm so often alone and because I am the subject I know best. I am the subject I know best.
En las mismas de Frida Kahlo, estamos compartiendo unas palabras que dijo ella. Yo me pinto a mí misma porque me siento sola. Y también el mejor sujeto que conozco soy yo misma. Por eso me pinto.
Okay, so now we know that it's a self-portrait of Frida Kahlo. She made this work of art in 1943. Let's really zoom in to Frida and take a look. What I love about this camera is that I can zoom in really closely and notice all the details about Frida. Notice her facial expression, notice how she's dressed, how she's wearing her hair. Really notice all you can about Frida Kahlo.
Estamos centrándonos en este personaje, ¿verdad? A la mitad, donde vemos a Frida Kahlo en la mitad de esta pintura. Hay tanto que ver. Miren, ¿qué ven del pelo? ¿Qué ven de su cara, su pose? ¿Qué está alrededor de ella?
So Veronica was talking about how he's posing, and I want us to think about her facial expression and how she looks. Stand up out of your chair, or you can stay seated if you want, and think about how she's posing. I'm going to pose on 3 after Veronica leads the part in Spanish. Veronica and I are going to pose like Frida Kahlo, and we want you to do the same. Take Frida Kahlo's pose to think about how is she posing.
Nos vamos a imaginar que somos Frida, ¿verdad? No importa quién seas. Vamos a imaginarnos, a ponernos en esta posición de Frida. Meredith lo va a hacer también conmigo. Y sintamos qué se siente, ¿verdad? ¿Qué se siente estar en esta pose? Voy a pensar en la cara, en las expresiones y cómo se siente mi cuerpo.
Okay, Veronica, are you ready to pose?
Right.
Let's do it on 3, students. I hope you're ready to pose. Look at Frida Kahlo. Really think about how she looks on 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh, Veronica, I love it. You look just like Kahlo. Nice
I feel
job.
so serious, though. I feel like serious.
I felt very serious. You know, I noticed that her shoulders are back, and in fact, she has the similar pose in most of her self-portraits of herself. She's representing herself in the same way in all of these self-portraits. And I noticed my shoulders were back. I felt very confident.
También, sí, eso es lo que digo, ¿no? Cuando posamos, Meredith me está compartiendo que ella se siente confiada en sí misma tratando de asumir esta pose. Y estas son poses que Frida Kahlo usualmente usa en sus autorretratos, donde la van a ver que es como de mitad de lado, ¿verdad? Con esos hombros puestos en esa forma un poco tensa, pero al mismo tiempo, como dijo Meredith, con esa confianza en sí misma. Yo me sentía muy seria.
And I love that she's looking straight at the camera, Veronica, and she's not looking away from us. She's showing that confidence instead of a shyness. She's showing us who she is by looking directly at us.
Yeah, and I also feel almost, Meredith, like, you know, like we could also feel like we're kind of under her, right? Because, I don't know, like her level, it's almost like she's looking under. Estaba comentándole a Meredith que tal vez con los ojos está viendo más hacia abajo.
Yeah, one thing that you're thinking about, Veronica, is called perspective, where the viewer is in relationship to the portrait. So we almost feel like she's looking down upon us and at us as the viewer, the person who's standing in front of the work of art.
Perspectiva, ¿no? Donde estamos viendo, donde es la vista de la persona en el retrato hacia la persona que ve la pintura y pareciera que está abajo.
And one thing I'm noticing, Veronica, that students say to me all the time when they first look at this is many students know Frida Kahlo, right? She's so famous because of how she dresses, her paintings, but also the identity that she gave to herself through her clothing. And we'll talk about her clothing a little bit more later. But many students always comment on they know it's her because of her eyebrows, but also her braids.
Y todo eso, yes, Meredith, I agree, the eyebrows and the hair, and that's also part, of how she created, right, this own identity. Meredith nos está llevando a ver las cejas, ¿verdad? El pelo, siempre tenía todo ese trabajo con estas trenzas y el pelo todo entrenzado también, porque eso parte también de su identidad.
Frida Kahlo was born on July 6, 1907, and she was really from two mixed cultures. And we're talking about how identity can really be part of your culture. Your culture can be part of your identity and who you are. Her father was German Hungarian, and her mother was half Spanish, half indigenous from the Tehuan people in Oaxaca, Mexico. So she really considered herself what we call a proud mestiza, or a mixed raced woman. And she really incorporated this into her identity through the way she wore her braids, the way she dressed, the jewelry that she wore from both Europe and Mexico. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about her clothing in a minute and how that was incorporated into this mestiza or mixed identity.
Yes, Meredith, so many symbols here. It's incredible. Sí, estamos hablando acerca de Frida Kahlo y lo importante que es todo lo que estamos hablando, ¿verdad? Pero Frida Kahlo nació en julio 6 de 1907 y Frida Kahlo viene de dos culturas mezcladas diferentes. Su papá era húngaro, alemán, era un fotógrafo, y su mamá era española, indígena de la parte tejuana en México. Entonces, Frida Kahlo realmente se considera una mestiza, orgullosa de estas mezclas de culturas, ¿verdad? De Europa y de México, en Centroamérica. Es una mezcla de razas, ¿verdad? Y es como ella se ve como mujer y como artista, mezcla de todas estas culturas, dos diferentes culturas.
Okay, so we've looked at the symbol of the leaves and the birds of paradise in the back, right, and what that represents for Mexico, but also her connection to the land. We've looked at her pose and how she's presenting herself through her clothing and hair as part of her identity and those symbols. Now let's take a look at the monkey in the room, right? Instead of the elephant in the room. I think throughout this whole conversation, this has been the monkey in the room that we haven't talked about yet. These really four playful monkeys that we see here.
Hacer como pensar en lo que vimos, ¿no? Hemos visto todo esto atrás que nos recuerda o nos enseña de su casa azul donde ella creció, ¿verdad? Todas estas partes de México, que es parte importante para ella, y toda esta forma que vemos, ¿verdad? Su identidad, el pelo, también donde ella nos está diciendo que son símbolos importantes de la persona que era es. Ahora vamos a enfocarnos a estos otros personajes, ¿verdad? Que nos ayudan a descubrir la historia, que son estos monos en la pintura, que sé que seguro que han estado hablando y pensando en estos monos desde el principio. Son muy difíciles de no ver.
So take a look at these monkeys and really how they're interacting. What are they doing in relationship with Frida Kahlo? What do we think the relationship is between Frida Kahlo and the monkeys? How did they interact with each other?
Ay, Meredith, and I always kind of like to be like, just kind of like, these pose also talk about posing and things like, how are these monkeys kind of wrapping around Frida?
Yeah.
I always kind of like to kind of move
They're almost
myself
like
around
part of her clothing in some ways.
Almost.
Part of her look.
Sí, Meredith nos está pidiendo que veamos y observemos cómo estos monos interactúan con Frida, ¿verdad? ¿En qué forma los vemos en diferentes formas? Desde atrás, mire, escondido en esa hoja, ¿verdad? Desde adelante con estos brazos. Y Meredith, I noticed something, that beautiful loop actually around the tail of that monkey on that arm.
Yeah, look at these tails. Yeah, look at that. Wow, that's amazing. Well, I just want to say something over about Frida Kahlo, but also about this connection to the monkeys. Frida Kahlo and her husband Diego Rivera lived in Mexico City, and they both practiced art and discussed ideas about their country and its people. They were interested in learning about music, politics, literature, and social issues. This brought them together as artists, but also as husband and wife. And Frida had many interests and enjoyed teaching as well. And during the time that this was made, she had just become a professor at a prestigious art school in Mexico City. And guess what she called her students? Los Fridos, her little Fridas that she also referred to as her little monkeys. So here we have these monkeys that possibly, we're talking about a symbol, could represent her students.
Frida Kahlo y su esposo, Diego Rivera, que también está en esta exhibición, vivieron en México, en la Ciudad de México, y los dos practicaban y discutían muchas cosas aparte de arte, como literatura, música, política, y esto cosas que estaban pasando socialmente, y eso los hizo que estuvieran más cerca, ¿verdad? Como artistas y obviamente como esposo y esposa. Pero también Frida Kahlo tenía otro interés más, que era enseñar. Como su profesora en la clase y como Meredith y yo, le encantaba enseñar. Y estaba enseñando justo en esta época, en 1943, en esta escuela llamada La Esmeralda, que era una escuela importantísima de arte en esta época. Y ella le enseñaba, era profesora, le encantaba enseñar. Entonces les decimos que sus estudiantes en esa época se les dicen los fridos, y podemos pensar tal vez que estos monos representan sus estudiantes, no otro símbolo más, ¿verdad? Donde nos está dando a conocer algo más de su identidad.
Veronica, you said something very important in Spanish, which I didn't say in English, which is the school was called La Esmeralda, and you can still this school is still very active today. Just quickly, I wanted to take us over to a picture that is hung right next to this portrait, and we actually see Frida Kahlo with a monkey here. Notice this long arm. Let me see if I can zoom in. Notice this long arm of this monkey, very similar to how she's actually painted the monkeys wrapping their arms around her. She not only
I'm sorry, who's that photograph by?
This photograph is by her friend Fritz Henley, and this was made in 1943, the same year she would have painted this. And she actually had spider monkeys at La Casa Azul, so she wasn't only thinking of her students, but also thinking about her personal pets. A lot of the students noticed the chain. I'm sorry that he's chained. All I can say is they treated monkeys a little different 80 years ago, I'm sure. And also, I bet she just didn't want him to run away. But notice what she's wearing, and notice her hair. Very similar to the painting.
Yeah, it's nice to see the picture. Also, and Meredith, maybe this is a good opportunity, and then I'll talk in Spanish about this in a bit, that, monkeys not only represent maybe perhaps that, her students and how important, but also their monkeys are very important in Aztec and cultures in Central America, even in pre-Hispanic times. And that was another thing that was very important to Frida Kahlo. Meredith nos enseñó una foto, ¿verdad? Donde estamos viendo al mono, ¿verdad? También para que vean lo importante que ella no solamente los tenía, pero también los usaba como mascotas en su casa.
Okay, so not only does she have this personal connection to the land, nature, to Mexico, but she's also looking at she's also looking at Mexico's past and these pre-Hispanic cultures, which she thinks is a very important part of Mexico's identity. And the Aztec people found in Mexico and other parts of Central America, as you mentioned, were also connected to monkeys as well. Thanks for that, Veronica.
I know, Meredith, and we are, we're so close to finishing, and it's so important to think about, how all these symbols, right, come together. Todos estos símbolos que estamos hablando acerca de cómo estos símbolos vienen juntos, las plantas, los monos y la ropa, ¿verdad? Her clothing as well.
So let's just take a look at the clothing, because it does have to relate to Aztec as well. Take a look at what you're noticing about her clothes. What are the colors she's using? Do they remind you of anything? And what's the detail that you notice on this blouse?
Hablando de la blusa ahora, es otra capa más, ¿verdad? Que estamos descubriendo. Estamos viendo la blusa. ¿Qué notan acerca de esta blusa? Acerca de los colores y lo que está pasando aquí.
Veronica, my eye, talking about the colors, my eye not only went to the birds of paradise at the top of this work of art, but also immediately goes to what looks like a symbol to me around her neck as part of this blouse. I also noticed how the artist is kind of using red in her lips and balancing it with the red on her shirt.
And John noticed the symbol right away. He shared that with us. He did notice, Mr. Long, the symbol right on the shirt, which is like it calls our attention. Meredith nos está invitando a ver, ¿verdad? Con la entrada al frente de la blusa, donde vemos este rectángulo aquí en la parte de arriba de la camisa.
And look how the monkey's touching it to show us that importance. This symbol is an ancient symbol from the Aztec culture, and it's on what we call a hoopy blouse, and we'll talk about a hoopy in just a minute. Veronica, do you want to tell us a little bit about what this symbol means for the Aztec culture?
Yes. So, we're talking about, obviously how the monkeys are also very important. But Frida and Diego Rivera were very inspired by their ancestors and the cultures and symbols, including animals and like this symbol that we're seeing right on top of the shirt. And this is represents actually an earthquake. An earthquake means something that is also constantly moving, and obviously part of her thoughts that were also moving, and all her political views and things that she discussed with her husband and her friends, that her ideas were constantly shifting and shaping, just like this Aztec symbol representing an earthquake.
So I mentioned that she's. I'm sorry. Do you want to say that in Spanish? Quickly?
Estamos hablando del símbolo, ¿verdad? Que representa un terremoto, porque los terremotos representan todos estos cambios de vida, y ese terremoto, ¿verdad? Que ella puso aquí, que es un símbolo azteca, representa estos cambios en su vida, ¿verdad? Y en sus vistas políticas que compartía también con Diego Rivera y sus amigos. Nos está diciendo algo más. Yo pienso en estas cosas, mis ideas están siempre cambiando, y lo represento con este símbolo.
So Frida Kahlo is wearing a hoopy blouse, which you would have seen from the Tehuan people. Remember, her mother is from the Tehuan culture in Oaxaca, Mexico. And I wanted to show you some of our clothing. These are representations of clothing that Frida Kahlo would have worn in her everyday life. She was really excited to show her mestiza, mixed culture, through her clothing. So we see her wearing a lot of these Tehuan blouses, these huipil blouses, but also skirts. She's also wearing in this one she wore resplendas, which would have been like a church hat that they would have worn for the Tehuan people. And she also mixed these with jewelry from Europe, with skirts from Europe. She would put flowers in her hair. So think about what you know about her identity, her family's culture and background. Think about how she incorporated all of these things into what she wore every day.
¿Verdad? Nos está llevando a ver el huipí, que es esta blusa donde se pintó Frida Kahlo en su autorretrato. Estas son vestimentas tradicionales mexicanas de esta área en Tijuana. No necesariamente Frida las usó, pero son ropa que hubiera usado Frida de la misma época. Entonces Meredith nos está invitando a ver el huipil, que es esta camisa corta arriba con la falda, el rodete, el rebozo, ¿verdad? El rodete es esta parte de la cabeza donde ella ponía sus trenzas, y el rebozo es este chal también que estamos viendo. Y ella mezclaba eso con cosas europeas, cadenas de oro. Piensen, pensando también en su identidad, ¿verdad? De su padre y su madre, que eran, cambio, ella es una mestiza orgullosa, hasta en cómo se viste.
Thank you. I said resplenda, but I meant reposo. This is a reposo. Thank you, Veronica, for correcting that. So all of these artists, so we're going to end with an activity today. And if you have time in class, you can take out a pencil and paper and do this activity. We want to wrap up by saying that all of these artists are really thinking about their identity, but also their identity of Mexico at this time that they were making art. They were thinking about what we call Mexicanidad. How can they show their Mexican heritage and identity through their art? Mexicanidad. So now we want to give you an opportunity to think about your own identity. Think about how you can find 3 symbols. Think about 3 symbols that represents your identity. You can list these 3 things on a piece of paper. And then what we want you to do is we want you to create your own self-portrait. It can be something as simple as a circle that you're making into your face. What are some symbols in the background behind your face, or maybe it's represented in your clothing? What are some symbols that represent your identity that you want to put on your own self-portrait?
A que vean cómo varios artistas, específicamente Frida Kahlo, ven en el modernismo mexicano, ven a estas historias prehispánicas y culturas para encontrar su propia identidad. Esto nos hace pensar en que el pasado define tu presente y define quién eres tú, ¿verdad? Como una identidad. Los artistas en esta época que estaban buscando esto y que eran de México se llama mexicanidad, que es la identidad que están tratando de descubrir, de regresar al pasado y lo importante que era para ellos. Meredith nos invita a ver hacer una actividad en este momento, de pensar en nuestra propia identidad, que tal vez no está totalmente definida, pero empezamos a pensar, ¿verdad? Vamos a hacer una actividad. ¿Qué símbolos usarías tú para mostrar tu identidad si dibujas un autorretrato? ¿Dibujarías un autorretrato? ¿Qué símbolos usarías? Danos 3 ideas. Puedes pausar este video y escribir eso cuando crees tu autorretrato.
So we want to thank you so much for coming today. On the week of December 27th, we will have what we call Schools Out. You can come see this exhibition with your family for free that entire week. Children under 12 also always get in free to the Norton. So we hope to see you during the holiday break or anytime afterwards through February 6th to see this exhibition.
We invite you to come to the Norton to see this exhibition. It's up. Sorry. Los estamos invitando, les estamos invitando a que vean esta exhibición en el Norton. Pueden entrar visitándonos a norton.org para comprar sus entradas hasta febrero 6 para que puedan visitarnos y ver esta exhibición. Para más información, vamos a agregar en el chat información del Norton.
Thank you so much for coming today. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Ciao. Nos vemos.
Thank you, ladies. That was very fascinating and stuff like that. And we really appreciate it. I love the blouse and the braided collar and stuff like that. So we really appreciate you guys. And that was an amazing thing. And you don't want to miss that. And especially that exhibition that's going to be free after Christmas from December 27th. And then if you can't make it that week, then you can also go right up to February 6th. So we would like to thank you from all of us at the Department of Educational Technology and the EdTech training team for joining us today. We've got another couple of virtual learning experiences coming up, and you don't want to miss them, and you can watch them at your leisure next week. And we hope you have a great day. Thank you for being here.